Now, a few months ago, we learned that the NFL Network had let go of very well-liked and respected on-air talent, Andrew Siciliano, Will Selva, Melissa Stark, and James Palmer. More recently, the network canceled the show NFL Total Access, a show that's been on the network for a little over 20 years, which is a big loss for diehard football fans who want to know about everything happening across the league. The NFL Network also fired Michael Irvin recently, who I believe was their most entertaining talent on NFL Game Day morning, but apparently the network could no longer afford all of the towels required to constantly wipe sweat off of Irvin's face, which would profusely exit his pores after he passionately screamed for 4 straight minutes about something football.
This is what's wrong with today. The young ladies today, they're not learning from mom how to cook. We're losing recipes.
All while giving himself another hernia. There is one huge thing brewing, leading to these cuts that I want to discuss with you today. Today's episode is sponsored by Factor. Factor is the easiest, best tasting, no prep meal that gets delivered right to your door. I've wanted to try Factor for a long time for a couple reasons. One, I'm pretty health conscious about what I put into this tiny, hairy body of mine. I limit carbs, sugar, processed food, etc. However, Jess, my wonderful wife, really wants to eat pasta or pizza 4 to 5 nights a week, which means there's compromise. Until now, I can just eat my Factor meals on the nights Jess wants to carbo load. I chose the Protein Plus option, and Factor delivers fresh, never frozen meals to your door with 35 different meal options and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. Night 1, I had the sun-dried tomato and chicken, and honestly, it was a lot better than I thought it would be. It was legit tastier than most anything I can cook myself. The portion size was perfect, which means I did not overeat, which means I can enjoy my scotch later, guilt-free. The other thing I love is convenience. Come football season, I need fast, ready-to-eat meals, and I popped mine in the toaster oven, and it was ready to go in like 7 minutes. So head to factor75.com or use my link below and code THATSGOOD50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month's order. That's good 50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month's order. Please subscribe here on YouTube and don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Brandon Perna. Now, unfortunately, for anyone who doesn't have a following like Pat McAfee, they become expendable as on-air talent. Last year, ESPN moved on from a ton of beautiful sports-talking faces to make room for Pat and his show. And based on that move and that show's success, it was the right move. I think the NFL Network might be kicking themselves in the dick for not being the company to lease Pat's show, but based on the next big move, that's probably irrelevant. This year, we saw the NFL Network fire good TV people again, Siciliano, Selva, Stark, and James Palmer. It feels like a random group of people until you realize it's not. Siciliano and Selva are both anchors. Stark is a sideline reporter and Palmer a national reporter. All professionals, and it's clear they didn't lose their jobs for a lack of talent or hard work. They were all too poor to bribe their superiors or pay to get real blackmail on them. That's the key.
Overpaying.
It's also important to keep in mind that the NFL Network, while ultimately owned by the NFL, doesn't get the luxury of benefiting or siphoning from the billions the league makes every year for their bottom line, right? It has to stand as its own business. It's a cable TV network that has to justify who it pays based on ratings and the ads it can sell against those ratings. Now, there are fringe benefits from the games they do get to broadcast, which is now essentially just Red Zone since Amazon has the Thursday night broadcasting rights. Now, I wanted to point that out because cable TV is getting its ass kicked by digital media right now. We know about cable cutting, streaming apps, but but YouTube TV is now on track to surpass cable subscribers by 2026. YouTube also had its 13th consecutive month as the most watched streaming service, maybe 14 now. The good news for the NFL is that it's partnered with YouTube. The Sunday Ticket is only available on YouTube. The NFL's YouTube channel has 12.8 million subscribers, but it has yet to create or tool a show that thrives there. Outside of highlights, the channel is simply posting clips from some of their other cable shows, and most of those clips do not perform well. But there's an opportunity there, and maybe we see the retooled Good Morning Football stream live on their channel, or for fuck's sake, create their own Good Morning Football YouTube channel where they can post all of their clips like McAfee did, just in reverse order. You got the show, now build the channel out for the show. That show is ripe to thrive on YouTube, and they haven't taken advantage of it. Now the other thing is that the NFL and ESPN are in advanced talks for a partnership. Oh fuck, that's very big. That's the big thing. That's the reason. That's a huge reason the NFL is letting talent go and not renewing some shows. This is a deal where the NFL would take an equity stake in ESPN and in turn give ESPN control of the NFL media arm. This deal has been in the works for a while and is expected to be finalized very soon. That pending deal, more than anything, is why the NFL isn't renewing some of their shows and deciding to let a bunch of their talent go. This does mean we may see ESPN employees, reporters, personalities no longer have the freedom to be critical of the league. And even though they never go too hard on the NFL, ESPN has always had the luxury to do so and has done it. That's to be expected if a merger or whatever the fuck this amalgamation goes through, but the real conflict I see is that ESPN and Penn Gaming already combined forces to create ESPN Bet, a struggling sportsbook, but a big sportsbook nonetheless. While the NFL is free to take money from sports betting partners, how do they justify having equity in a company that is a sportsbook or an arm of a sportsbook? That's a bit concerning to me. The NFL Network and ESPN will look like two separate entities, but they won't be. The good news is the NFL won't keep missing out on the giant free agent media acquisitions. Bill Belichick and Peyton Manning, they're both on Team ESPN. Jason Kelce joining ESPN. The NFL has been like the Denver Broncos in this last free agency, making zero splashy moves as they pay off their dead cap hits. It doesn't get mentioned, but none of these guys see a reason to be a part of the NFL Network. They're all starting their own thing or joining ESPN. That's where the game's at right now. And if you can't beat them, join them. This signals more of a strategic content shift on the part of the NFL media branch. I think they see hosts, anchors, reporters as expendable, meaning there's no point in investing in one of them long term. Kind of like how the league itself sees running backs. Of course, they're never going to fire Rich Eisen or Ian Rappaport, but any of the second string players are replaceable in their eyes. Rich and Ian have many empires themselves. That's a dangerous game because those jobs are certainly not as easy as they look, and while those people don't necessarily attract eyeballs or drive ratings, they give the network an air of credibility.
I am holding a bone. It's not a real bone.
And the NFL started losing out on these power plays when they let people like Kay Adams and Nate Burleson leave for other companies. I think its inability to see their value was a big mistake. And joining with ESPN's an easy way to fix it. My guess is that the NFL has seen what ESPN is doing and what the internet at large is doing, and instead of trying to recreate or compete, again, just join ESPN. The key is personality-driven programming, something the NFL really only nailed with Good Morning Football. And personally, I love the NFL pregame show before NFL Sunday kicks off, NFL Game Day morning, but they just cut their biggest personality from that show, Michael Irvin. Rich Eisen, of course, drives the show.
Both each.
But it's more of a tradition than a destination like Good Morning Football became. Michael Irvin still appeared on Fox as Undisputed from time to time this last year, so maybe that's a factor in canning him before this ESPN thing, since he couldn't work for both Fox and ESPN. Who knows? And as much as I enjoy Michael Irvin, again, I don't think he's a draw like many others in the space. Now, Pat McAfee is not a reporter, nor is he a classically trained anchor, but he's charismatic and he's a driving force behind a ratings monster of what essentially amounts to a video podcast. Stephen A. Smith began his career as a journalist and has evolved, or devolved if you prefer, into a sports personality. Same goes for one Skip Bayless, his former counterpart. Skip was a Dallas area muckraker who made his name off a book that alleged Troy Aikman was secretly gay. Seriously, I made an entire video about that feud. Now Bayless is a guy in a chair who doesn't report or write columns, but gives his well-manicured and carefully polarizing opinions on whatever is happening in the world of sports. And even that shtick ain't working anymore. People do not want to watch those shows to be informed because there's information fucking everywhere. News is broken on Twitter. It's not broken on TV or in newspapers anymore. So ESPN and the NFL Network have to sell reactions and opinions of the news, not the news itself. I do the same thing here. I just like to think that I do it in a unique and well-reasoned manner, even within my insanity, or excessive use of penis, dick, ball, and cum jokes. After the Netflix roasting of Tom Brady, I'm scared ESPN's coming for my cum jokes. You stay away from my cum jokes, ESPN! I'm the king of jizz. I'm the king of jizz, ESPN, not you. You don't have to have the hottest take. You can say crazy stuff. I'm the king of jizz. I'm the king of jizz, ESPN, not you. But provide something of value. We're making 20-plus minute videos here about almost every topic we dive into, and people are watching. The NFL Network has their version of a take show, Good Morning Football, and I think it's better, more lighthearted, and more thoughtful than anything on ESPN or Fox Sports. Yes, it has lost some of its magic over the years, and now, of course, there are questions about that show as they move the studio from New York to Los Angeles with hosts up in the air.
Some of those answers I don't know. Some of them are not mine to give. And candidly, I have a lot of questions myself.
I think a big reason we don't have clarity on what that show will look like yet is because ESPN may be the one actually producing or controlling it moving forward.
And Good Morning Football is not ending. It is expanding.
If ESPN is involved via this projected partnership, that opens up a whole new talent pool for the show. Not necessarily as replacements for the current crew, but as additions to the show, and my guess, a colorful rotation of fill-in hosts and segments. It better have its own YouTube channel as well, just like ESPN has already done with a lot of its talent. The NFL's digital media plan for Good Morning Football has always been behind the times. Now, the NFL Network laid off 5% of its workforce a year ago, and 60 employees took buyouts back in January. As TV numbers dwindle, this is how they tighten the belt before merging. You gotta be at your fittest during the courting stages, and then after the marriage, you can slowly fatten up again. And I think the NFL media arm is also trying to clear room and cut costs for their own Pat McAfee, a lightning rod triple threat who can effectively steer a show and give interesting opinions and reactions. But what's the third thing? Ah, yes, access. McAfee has access unlike anyone else in sports media right now. Not only does he get players to do his show, he makes them feel comfortable, probably with a lot of drugs. Specifically weed. To put it in another way, he gets motherfuckers high. Now, he's not a gotcha journalist, nor does he ask hard-hitting journalistic questions. He's completely eschewed the ethics of journalism by paying Aaron Rodgers for his weekly appearances. Now, whether or not you give a shit about that is completely up to you, but it's changed. The NFL probably sees the next McAfee as one of, or probably both, the Kelceys. Jason Kelce is expected to start his media career on Monday Night Countdown, which is ESPN. Travis is still winning Super Bowls and dating one of the most 2 or 3 recognizable figures on planet Earth, but he's also entering year 12 in the NFL and doesn't have all that much left to prove or accomplish. We know he's probably good for 2 years based on the 2-year contract Casey gave him. Yeah? If I were to venture a very specific guess, I think the NFL wants to reproduce the New Heights podcast on their network, much like ESPN did with the Pat McAfee show. The easiest way to do that is let ESPN do it for you. New Heights has the audience on YouTube that the NFL Network needs. And I think that would present a lot of challenges, though, in terms of what they're allowed to say and how much they can criticize the league itself. But in terms of the new media shift and where the money is going, that makes the most sense to me. I also don't know how a show like that fits into an ecosystem with, say, Good Morning Football, Get Up, First Take, McAfee, Sports Center, whatever else the NFL Network puts into the mix. If I'm completely off base on that prediction, what I think is close to certain is that we'll be seeing more personality-driven programming on the NFL Network going forward. Something that's taken them too long to do. ESPN should have free access to the NFL content library, so not only can they make new programming, they can enhance all of their current programming. All the same talent will be under one umbrella. We are heading for a giant sports monopoly, and once again, I was not invited, so politely, fuck that monopoly. I'm the king of jizz. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here. The more subscribers I get, the closer I come to joining the monopoly myself.